to episode 5 of the BZ Music Podcast. My name is Ben Weise.
And I am Zach Seif. Can you believe that we're on episode 5 already?
Man, I'm just having the time of my life doing these things.
So great. It's nice to catch up every week. You know, this is super cool.
Absolutely.
Podcast is starting to pick up a little bit. You know, we're getting, a couple more people each time, and that's really all that matters. You guys listening at home, you tell us what you want us to talk about, and we're open to suggestions.
And if anyone is interested in being on the podcast, feel free to reach out to either me or Zach on any time. We'd love to have as many people on here as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the guest that we have today, I mean, he's a brutal guitar player, just skill for days. And he's one of my favorite things about his playing is that he's super clean. You know, all of his videos, like, it's just him and, like, his iPhone, and it sounds like $1 million. It's so good.
Anyone watching at home, especially any theater people or guitarists, you may recognize this guest, whether through his YouTube videos or just him, or just knowing him personally and knowing how kind-hearted and goofy of a guy he is. He's just,
for sure. Well, we'll get him on in a minute. But Ben, I've got a question for you. What have you been up to this past week?
This past week, I've mostly been focusing on, I guess like two main things. Mostly, teaching as well, but outside of teaching, it's mostly just honing back in on my jazz chops and really kind of digging back into jazz. Because I've kind of been doing that for all the for the past like 3 or 4 years of my degree, but I never really had the time to really sit down and kind of just focus on just that. And so
right.
that's one thing. I got I got about 37 tunes right here off to the side. I'll spare you the viewers of seeing how messy this is right here.
Dude, I am so guilty of neglecting my jazz chops as well, because I used to do some solo jazz stuff. The problem, though, is that, you only do it once in a while, and then other things start to kind of pile on. But yeah, I've got my list of, my chord melodies, and eventually I want to get back to them. It's just a matter of sitting down and doing that instead of something else that's more immediate to do. But I'm guilty as well,
Yeah. It's like they say the hardest part of a new job is starting it. So I think once you not you specifically, but anyone, once you sit down and really just kind of put your mind to it, the results will come much quicker than you think.
Absolutely. I definitely agree.
But the other thing that I've been working on is really just kind of working on my video editing chops and syncing up, doing a lot more kind of like Instagram videos and Facebook videos where I'm playing. This past week, earlier in the week, I did a video on Instagram where I took the song "What Do You Want From Me" by Adam Lambert, and I played, and I was like, what if that song had a guitar solo? And so I played a guitar solo over top of it.
That solo was nuts. That was so cool.
It was also it was slightly inspired by a certain someone who will be joining us shortly.
Yes.
But
yeah, dude, that was a great solo, because it didn't feel out of place. Like, it felt and sounded like something that would genuinely be represented. So you did a pretty sweet job on that.
Thanks, man. What about you? What are some things you've been up to?
Yeah, so this past week, For those of you, who don't know, I do a public live stream every Saturday at 7 p.m. on my Facebook page. Just my name, Zach Seif. So I've been practicing the music for that, and I'm also practicing the music for next week. Just always trying to, get one step ahead of the game. So it takes a bit of time to really set these up, because what I do is once I figure out what my theme is going to be, I might do like a whole album cover or just do one genre. Once I figure out what my theme is, I get all the songs prepared, then I have to pitch shift everything so the Facebook algorithm doesn't kick me right away and, copyright strike and everything. And then I put everything into a Logic project, right? My DAW, Logic Pro X, and I time everything out with automation. So I only have to press one button and my whole show is automated with all my transitions, my intro music, my outro music, how much time I need in between songs to tune or swap guitars. And then I gotta learn the songs. So I tend to pick songs that I usually already know or have played in the past, but we're 7-8 streams in now, so now I'm trying to go back and learn some songs that I never got to learn before. So this one coming up this week, the week of May 15th, it's just a general pop music live stream, so anything that's been on the radio in the last 20 years is fair game. The one for next week, which will be the week of the 22nd. That sounds like a Saturday. Yeah. Whatever that Saturday is, it's going to be an 80s live stream. I mean, everyone who's watching this by the time this episode comes out, that week will already have been passed. But you can go back to my Facebook. It's going to be 80s themed. So I've got my my special outfit, as I like to say, prepared. It's one of those mesh shirts, and I've got my neon pink spandex pants. It's going to be a great freaking time. Speaking of great freaking times and ripping 80s solos, I think our guest is just about ready to come on. He said that he's trying to get on now. So that's what I've been working on, my live stream. I had midterms for Berkeley this week, so I did a 4.5-minute overture composition for my recording class, where the point was to, work with EQs and compression and an automation to try to get everything to sit in the mix throughout. Keep it steady as new elements are added in and whatnot. And then I'm doing that entrepreneurship class. So just, marketing stuff and, programming and stuff like that. So that's what my week has been up to, It's been pretty good. What are you looking forward to in the next couple weeks coming up? Assuming the situation stays the same for those of you guys listening in the future. This is still during the coronavirus. What do you want to achieve before summer starts?
Before summer starts, well, I would. I'm certainly looking to just improve upon all the things that I've kind of started working on, i.e., just posting regular content, utilizing, figuring out how to use the DAWs that I have, and how to edit videos and all that stuff. Just like kind of continuing what I've been doing. I actually put something that I want to do is I kind of want to do like regular covers of like pop songs, kind of like how I did with the Adam Lambert song. So I asked a bunch of people, or I put a question out on my Instagram story, just asking for pop song suggestions, and I got a bunch of suggestions. So you can expect to see some pop / shred content fairly soon.
Oh yeah, dude, all about those pop covers. All right, it is that time where we introduce the man, the myth, the legend himself. This is one of the coolest people on social media, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. John Barry.
You need to get the paid one, or you lose after 40 minutes. I was like, what? Why? Like, it's just whatever. Adapting, dude. We're in the new world. We're in the new time. What's going on?
Yeah, I hear you, man. So, this podcast, just kind of started the whole idea of, hey, let's just sit down every week and chit chat about music and what's going on. And after just having him for a week, we're like, yeah, let's bring on some guests, make it more interesting. So this has been pretty great. We have a full lineup of guests for the remainder of the month or so, which is pretty cool. We love having other people on just to share experiences and whatnot. And each week kind of has a little theme to it, which we'll get to in a minute. Before we get too deep into it, every week we like to ask the audience a question that they want us to answer, kind of like a question and answer sort of thing. And we figured we'd have you involved with it. So the question for this week, this is from my good friend Darian. Darian, if you're listening, this question is yours, my brother. He simply messaged me one word: Tonewood. So, for the viewers at home who don't know what Tonewood is, people like to debate on the internet that the actual wood that an instrument is made of doesn't matter. You can just put any piece of wood into the guitar and it'll sound exactly the same. So I figured, Ben, we'll get your input first, and then we'll get John's, and then I've got a little segment from Mr. Paul Reed Smith himself on his stance of the topic. So, Ben, what are your thoughts on Tonewood?
Okay. So, yes, as you said, this debate has kind of been amongst the whole guitar community. It's kind of been a never-ending debate between some people. I personally never paid that much attention to it because I don't want to waste my time and energy just arguing over something like that.
Yeah.
I will say that it's to the untrained ear and to maybe the less experienced player, they may all seem the same, and it may seem like there is no difference between them. But once you kind of find the guitars that you really like, and you really kind of resonate with them, and you learn a little bit more about them, you do start to get a little bit more you do start to get a little picky about the kind of woods you have. So in that regard, it does matter.
Okay.
Because ultimately, as a guitar player, as a musician, you want to play what is comfortable for you, and you want to play something that complements your playing and your sound. And that might, whether that might be, whether you prefer guitars that have maple necks or mahogany necks or alder bodies or anything like that, that's ultimately up to the player. So in short, no, they are not all the same.
All right, John, what is your take on Tonewood and how wood affects the guitar?
Well, I think a lot of things affect the tone of the guitar. So I'm on the side that wood does affect what you're getting from your instrument, but it's a part of a whole formula, right? Like your hands, like a player's touch affects tone, pickups affect tone. But if I was the constant in that, wood does have characteristics that, certain woods are brighter, certain woods are darker. Like mahogany is way darker than alder, right, for example. So that's why certain guitars, like you never see Gibson put out a maple neck Les Paul because they're more dark than bright, But like Ben was saying, it all comes down to personal taste. And fortunately, I think that whole idea is more aimed at maybe an acoustic guitar, because I think once you do put an electric guitar through a signal, there's so many other things that are now coloring just the tone of your wood. So I think it does matter. If you were going, I want to aim for something that's more, bright, maybe a little bit top heavy, and then you wanted to change it, you could obviously change that with the different colors that you want to put on colors. Like
Yeah.
effects and EQs and all that good stuff. So I mean, I'm a fan of really taking that into consideration if you were gonna like build a guitar, you know? Like sometimes I like balancing out a little bit. You know what I mean? You know, I seen you play like a lot of mahogany guitars.
Yeah.
So I know. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of experimenting. But play what makes you happy. Play what makes you happy.
No, I definitely agree. The place that I stand on Tonewood is that at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit what my guitar is made of, as long as the neck is comfortable and it feels balanced. So Tonewood is absolutely a thing, and like I said, I have a little clip from Mr. Paul Reed Smith himself. I'm using this clip from a video that they have online from the PRS experience. I do not own the rights to this clip, but I just want to play a little bit of it. So this is a percussionist who is taken the same length and the same density of different guitar neck woods from everything that maple necks, mahogany necks, whatever, and he's hitting them in the same spot with a hammer just so you can hear the difference. I'm gonna play that clip real quick. And that right there, right, it sounds like a whole marimba or something. No, they're all evenly cut pieces of different PRS necks. So does the wood matter? Yes, but I agree with John heavily that the woods on an acoustic guitar matter a hell of a lot more than the woods on an electric guitar. Now, that being said, I also agree with the whole fact of different companies using different woods to accentuate different frequencies and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of funny when you look at a lot of single coil guitars. Alder, ash, and pine tend to be very popular woods to pair with single coil pickups. Now, single coils are already brighter. You usually use a 250K pot, which doesn't take off a lot of top end. So all that lightness and brightness together is what gives guitars like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster their very signature high-end, top-heavy sound, whereas some of my guitars like the PRS Custom 24s, the 2408s, Gibson Les Pauls, that's all mahogany. And they use, thick humbuckers with 500K pots, so you keep on darkening the tone, but it gives it a very signature sound. I mean, just to take two guitars I have, you just knock on the back, of that guitar, and then you knock on the back of this one. I don't know how well the mic picks that up, but they have two very different sounds. Now, they're made out of two totally different, pieces of wood. At the end of the day, sure, one might be a little bit heavier, but, there's a lot of factors that play into it. So, does Tonewood matter in the sense that is it my make or break when I buy a guitar? No. What matters the most to me is the neck profile, how it plays, and how it feels when I'm playing, especially standing up. If it's got terrible neck dive, I'm not going to use it. But at the same time, if it comes up all the way here with the strap, that's not going to work either.
That's what I was just about to say. I like, it's crazy that I was looking. I'm psychic, bro. I was like looking up all these, like, ebony is so dense, and you would assume because it's such a dark colored wood that it would be not as bright as it is. It's very bright.
It is. It's right up there with maple.
But it's very top heavy. It's so dense that if you had like an older body, you would probably want to put that strap button, not like if you had a S-style body, you wouldn't want to put that strap button on the horn. You would probably want to put it by the neck joint. You know what I mean? Just right. Like that, all that stuff is crazy. It is interesting though to like, you never, like, how often do you see a mahogany fretboard or something like that? Like, I would imagine that rosewood has to be darker than ebony, right? Or is rosewood brown?
So rosewood tends to be a brownish color, and ebony is always straight black because ebony's usually dyed. You can get what's called streakless ebony, which is what companies like Music Man and Sir use, but you can also get non-filtered ebony, which may have some white spots or some more brown spots. But yeah, maple is the brightest. and it looks like wood, right? Rosewood is always going to be like that darker brown purple color, and an ebony is usually flush black.
No, but I mean tonal quality. Is rosewood not as bright? Because there has to, otherwise no fretboard usually in like mass-made companies are ever darker woods.
Yeah, so maple's still the brightest. Ebony has the fastest attack to it, so it tends to have the top end of maple with its attack, and then it dies out. And then rosewood is considered to be the warmest, so it kind of sits in the middle there.
Yeah, PRS have those really heavy sounding guitars because of that.
Right.
Yeah, my Music Man, they're all ebony fretboards. All my PRS are rosewood fretboards, and then my Telly, is maple, but my Novo Telly, I believe, is rosewood, if I'm not mistaken. It might be, no, it's definitely rosewood, yeah, with a baked maple neck. And that's something I want to talk about real quick. If you guys
roasted maple, baby,
maple neck, oh my lord,
it's the only way to go, man. Let me tell you something. For those of you guys who are watching that don't know what we do, we're all East Coast musicians, and the one thing that's crazy about the East Coast is that our weather is insane. Like, you go summer to fall to second summer to kind of fall, winter back to fall, second winter, avalanche, snow winter. Like, it's just all crazy.
You're not kidding.
I'm not kidding, dude. Especially
totally true.
It's terrible, dude. Like, it's nice, but it's also not nice for your instrument, especially, dude. Like, so to have something that's as stable as a roasted maple neck, I'm assuming that nothing but guitar players are watching this, but in case you don't know, wood warps, you guys. Wood warps. So something that gives me not a headache to have to worry about, I'm a fan of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
that's
John,
the whole reason. Yeah.
Sorry, Ben, you go.
No, you're good.
So, and again, I'm going to kind of chop this up and just take that first half off. We're going to do a proper introduction now. So we'll take 2 seconds and properly introduce you. You can just give us a short little bio.
For sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. John Barry.
Yes. Thank you. What's up, everybody?
John, how's it going, man? For everyone at home who doesn't quite know who you are, or maybe they probably know you better than they know us, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. So I'm John J. Barry is what I'm trying to brand myself as. Believe it or not, there's a lot of John Barrys, and my father's one of them. So I'm a professional guitar player, you guys. I born and raised in Staten Island, New York. Went to Berklee College of Music on a pretty nice scholarship, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you, Berklee. Left Berklee College of Music, and while I was there, my whole dream was to be the next John Petrucci.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Nobody was telling me otherwise. I said, forget it. I got the hair. I got the beard. I have 87,000 Music Mans. I'm ready. But I used to always see, because I'm from New York, so I used to always see musicals. And when I was up there, I found my love of playing in pits. Well, like my last year there with Professor Scotty Johnson and the guy I studied with a lot, John Finn. And when I told them I was coming back to New York and I was going to plan to move back here and have my life here, they were like, that's something you should look into. And I've been very fortunate I do a lot of things. I teach, I play live shows, I do sessions. I have a YouTube channel, John J. Barry, on YouTube.
Go follow him.
Yes, go check out that channel. There is some great shit there.
Thank you, man. That means a lot coming from you guys. But I've been on this grind now. I graduated college December of 2015. I went back to walk in May of 2016, but I was already living. I moved back and I was in New York. So I've been grinding for almost 5 years, and I haven't been killing it, but I feel like this last kind of leg, I had a really, really good couple of months before the coronavirus came up, and I've just been really fortunate, you guys. I've been getting to play a lot of music with a lot of great people. I haven't gotten a chance to meet Zach in person, even though we interact almost all the time on the social medias. But I've even had Ben sub for me on an off Broadway show, and that was really cool. And playing, man. We're just playing, trying to have a good time. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. I wanted to start the episode with because I feel like all three of us can relate to this. The end of 2019 and the very, very beginning of 2020, at least for me, were some of the best months I've had in music in a long time. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. We're not going to get all down and dopey with the coronavirus on this episode because we've been discussing that for the past 5 episodes.
Yeah.
But I just want us all to take, like, in a minute or less, what made the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, what it was for you. And what I mean by that is I'll kind of go first. So I joined a new band, Triple Addiction, at the end of 2019. We're a southern rock, country rock, hard rock band based out of central New Jersey. And this was the first time I was going to go back and play shows in the sense that not cover band, not pit orchestra, not casinos, playing shows and venues for other touring bands. So when I got the call from my friend John Laurie, not John Barry, but John Laurie, the drummer and co-founder of the band, he's like, yeah, so the 3 shows we need you to check out, we're opening for Saving Gable, we're opening for Buck Cherry, and we're opening for Danny Worsnop.
Who the hell are those guys?
I'm like, fuck yeah.
Of course.
Who the hell knows?
Is that a question? So, I did a show that their one guitarist couldn't make anyway, and it went really well, got the gig. And I had, between my cover bands, work, and Triple Addiction, I had at least 1 or 2 shows every week from March all the way through the end of May lined up. And it would have been the busiest I would have been in a non-pit situation, right, where you're working at least 3 days a week, right, maybe 4 if you have a matinee. That I would have been busy, the busiest I'd been in a long time. Everything from, Asbury Park in New Jersey to playing the Chameleon Club in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We may have been back at Mount Airy Casino with my event band. So there was a lot of stuff. But I'm grateful for the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, because holy shit, if it didn't get my chops back up and if it didn't help me start focusing in on my gear just a little bit more. I'm a acclaimed gear whore. I run the New Jersey.
No, not you. What are you talking about?
So I got my Enki touring case, right, to drag into show, so I didn't have to bring a guitar stand anymore. I got another powered Kemper. My last setup and breakdown time on the last gig we played in March, I was 60 seconds flat setting up and breaking down.
Jesus Christ.
That's the dream.
The life.
What he's not telling you folks is that 60 seconds doesn't count loaded from the car and back to the car.
That is valid. But you got to get your ass off stage as fast as possible.
No, I know. I'm not messing with it.
So, Ben, what was the end of 2019, beginning of this year looking like for you? Because you had a pretty big moment of your life happen just, this past week or so. So how did that all lead up to that?
Thank you. Yeah. Little telltale sign right there. So yeah, the end of 2019 was kind of a I've kind of like for most of 2019 I had kind of been building up like a lot of music related work, whether it was like pit stuff or playing solo guitar or with my trio and stuff like that. Really, I think for me the goal was not the goal, but a goal was to kind of make music related things like the thing in my life, and not just kind of make that. I mean, it had always kind of been like the thing, but it was never like the thing that kind of brought home the money for me. And I always had to kind of like rely on like, having to work as a cashier or work as like a grocery store clerk and stuff like that. But I finally, at the beginning of November, I was able to give my notice to my then main job, working as a cashier at Wawa.
That was the best feeling, man.
It was like, it was honestly one of the best feelings like of my life. I just took a look. I forget how it happened, but there was one moment where I was at work. It was at like 6 o'clock in the morning, bright and early. I'm like,
I don't wake up until 9 o'clock. Who are you kidding?
No, come on, come on. Those are not music. Like those are not
musician hours, man. Sometimes when you're getting home, let's be real here.
That's soulless corporate routine hours, if we're being honest. but yeah, I was just like, one moment I was at work one day, and I was just like, fuck this. Like I don't really like I was at the point like I don't need this job anymore. Like I had built up a solid array of students, like a solid lineup of students that I still teach to this day. And I was just like, I don't like, here's what I like to do. And here's something that I have to do, And so I got to the point where I could eliminate that from the equation. And that was like, as far as like the end of the year, that was one of the big highlights. And musically speaking, I'd kind of built up a lot throughout the year working in pits, and as well as with my band, the Other Lovers. We actually, at the end of 2019, we played at the Stone Pony, and then we played there again in February for a competition called Rock to the Top, which we made it past that, and we advanced to the final round, which we don't know when that's going to be.
Right.
We don't know when that's going to be yet. It was supposed to be in June, but alas. And I had a lot of students at the time. At the beginning of the year, I had maybe like 21 or 22 students throughout the week. That number's gone down a little bit, but I've still been able to keep a significant amount of them. Still doing pit stuff. I've been really kind of rediscovering my love of jazz, which, as Zach and I talked about earlier, I've really kind of honed in on that lately. And getting to what Zach mentioned earlier, just under a week ago, I officially became a Rutgers University graduate.
Woo! That's what we're talking about. That's the woo. That's the woo. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Took a long time, but we made it.
Dude, class of 2020, man. Bunch of BAMFs, bro. BAMFs. Badass mother. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Hell yeah. Cool, John. So what has the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 been like for you so far?
Let me tell you guys.
Every time I see you post something, man, I'm like, man, he's here, and then he's here, and then, oh, wait, is he good? No, he's back up here. And it's like, hey, that's something I want to do. So why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
2019 and 2020 was probably the two best years of my career, which makes this, both bittersweet. But it was such a fucking blast and such a great opportunity. I ended 2019 like around the summer, the end of the summer, becoming like an active sub for Off-Broadway's Rock of Ages for the Guitar One part. And that had me working in Manhattan quite often, which was super nice. I have a big roster of students that I also teach. And I don't know if anybody out there maybe isn't a freelance musician or doesn't know, but like, at least for me personally, the students are like your guaranteed bread that you're going to make. Like you kind of budget around that. But getting gigs are where you get, also fulfillment, but a lot of your, extra bread. So I was very fortunate to get my foot in there with the Rock of Ages people at New World Stages, because first off, everybody there in that show is incredible. And it really meant a lot, because to get that spot, I had to, somebody took a chance with me, and it was off like the word of somebody that we both know, who I respect very much. So I'm very grateful for that. But towards December, and Billy Smolin, a mutual friend of ours, he's a bass player in Jersey. He's an awesome cat. He also does pit stuff, a lot of jazz. Did he go to Rutgers with you guys, or did he go to Patterson?
He went to William Patterson.
Billy helped me get a gig with this church group called Rise in the Smoke Rise Community Church. So every Sunday before 9 o'clock in the morning, boys, I'm up there playing some worship guitar. But towards the end of 2019, I had a super, super amazing opportunity to be the guitar player for an off-Broadway show where I was the guitar chair for the show called Emoji Land. And we had like maybe one band rehearsal before we had to move into the Duke, which is on 42nd between 7th and 8th. And that we moved in on New Year's Eve. We loaded up, started teching. And once 2020 hit, January 1st was like my only day off. We were there every day, dude. They had us there for teching. It was such a tech heavy show. And it was my first time, because if you don't have a chair on like a Broadway or off-Broadway show, like Zach mentioned earlier, sometimes you're really only playing maybe 3, 4, 5 shows a weekend. Maybe you do one on Friday, 2 on Saturday and Sunday at like a college or a school or a community theater. Right. But this was my first ever 8-show-a-week schedule. And it's an experience, man. Like, you're there and the click plays tricks with your mind, and the click feels different on Tuesday than it does on Sunday, the last show. You get that day up, you're like, but man, it was such a great experience. And the reason why I didn't have a day off is because 9 times out of 10, I was fortunate enough to, on my day off, I would be needed at Rock of Ages on that Monday. So I was working like 7-day weeks for a couple of good weeks. And it was so much fun. It is so, like, there's nothing other, like I never thought I ever wanted to do anything as much as I wanted to do what I had the chance to experience and live. And it was incredible. It really was so much fun. These are like top of the line musicians, man, everywhere. Like when you go somewhere like Manhattan, really in the tri-state area, everywhere. Like at this point, it's like, I'd be like, yeah, I know Zach can play. Like I first off, I heard Zach play, but even if I never heard Zach play or Ben play, it's like at this point, at this level, what they're doing, that they can handle their own. You know what I mean? So it's like being able to play isn't even really part of like the prerequisite anymore. Because you just like, he has to play or he wouldn't be where you're at right now,
That's right. Yeah, we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. If you want to chime in on this real quick, right? Being a hang, right?
Yeah, dude. Being a like, dude. Let me tell you, the Emoji Land crew and everybody who was a part of that, the band, we were together literally 12 hours a day, 7 days a week during tech. And then you're there every day getting food, hanging out. You wouldn't want to be doing that with somebody who is a complete asshole. Like that is not who you want to, not who you want to be. But it really, like 2020, 2019, to answer your question and make it shorter than what I dragged that out to be, it's been a really great year, a really great couple of months of making really great music, dude. Hopefully I impressed enough people that I hope that when the world opens up again and people need some guys, they might think of me, whether they need a chair to be filled or need a sub. That's my game plan for life. Wish me luck. When the success goes around, we all get success. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, here's hoping, man. Here's hoping. But I'm very looking forward to the day for a million of reasons. But I'm very looking forward to the day where bars are opening up to have people play. Broadway is open up to have people play. Places like Starland Ballroom are open up so your band could get, you know what I mean? Because that means we could all go out, we can have fun. I believe that at this point in human history, it's like it's going to be so much nice because people aren't going to take things for granted. I know you probably talked about it, but I just had to say my piece.
Definitely, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially for Starland Ballroom. I had 3 Starland shows canceled on me this year alone that I was going to play, and then it would have been the first time I got to play there. 3 shows. And that's like, and people like, I don't know if Starland Ballroom still works the same way when I was younger, but it's like, it's hard to get yourself there, and like you have to sell a certain amount of tickets. So it's a lot of grind. And for people that are watching this, just a straight up kudos to like somebody like Zach, who is hitting the music grind 7 days a week. Like I used to post on my YouTube channel twice a week. And that is so draining
editing things together and having that schedule and having to do something, and sometimes just coming up with different ideas on your own is so hard, man, you know? So it's like, kudos to you, brother.
Thank you. Trying my best to get it there. Starting like last year, I started trying to do like themes on Instagram, right? So like every Monday was this, every Wednesday was that, every Friday was that. And it's just about trying a bunch of shit, see what sticks and see what doesn't. If a concept works and you're not getting what you thought you'd get out of it, find something else. And I think that's what, you know, the Berkeley course that I'm taking this semester is creative entrepreneurship, and it's really all about how musicians in themselves are entrepreneurial because you are your own brand, you are your own product that you've got to sell either other bands or another pit or another MD, or you got to sell social media, you got to sell this company, you got to sell yourself. And as an artist, we are in ourselves our own entrepreneurs.
True.
It can take you 50 tries or 10 different bands or 5 different shows to find what it is you really want to do, or what you're even good at, or what people are going to get a response out of you for. You know, because like not for nothing, but I did the regular job for a couple years while also doing music to get to a point where I could only do music. And you know, it's been a while since I've been doing that. I've been doing just music, and by that I mean gigging, teaching, whatever, for two full years now.
Hell yeah, dude.
I can't see myself doing anything else. I'd much rather continue this grind of just keep on going, even when nothing else is going on right now, than just cave in and take that $18 an hour and then not be able to do what I've spent over 12 years getting ready for. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, you know, you left college 5 years ago. I graduated high school 5 years ago.
Oh,
so
boy,
I did too.
Right,
boy.
so knowing where you
I'm so old.
knowing where you are and where you are, you know, like what you've done, like that gives me something to like work for, which is why I love this community of musicians that we have, especially us guitar players. We're a very special breed. We are.
Especially
Not only
people
are
from
we
the outside
very
looking in, they
Not only are we the coolest people in the day, most important.
have the greatest goddamn hair. You know what I'm saying?
I can't think of another group of people, and again, like, you know, musicians are musicians, but like us guitar players, man, like whether we're at shows or whether we actually really know each other or not, like this is the first time that John and I are really talking. Like we're there for each other. We have each other's backs. We're there to help each other out.
Always, man.
And it's just this given thing where if you put yourself out, and again, this circles back to what we talked about, you know, a week and 2 weeks ago about being a good hang. If you just are a decent human being and you're not an asshole, like that's what's going to get you work. It's as simple as that. Feel free to disagree, but
Nah, dude, you're right. You just got to be human, you know? And then the other thing that's super incredible about that is it's like, you know, I look at the three of us, right? All three of us. There are two really good musicians in the room, and then there's some guy with long hair and has to grow up. But you got all of us have a different flavor or a flair to what we get, right? So it's like, you know, if you go on our Instagrams, right, you see that grind that you're doing, Zach. It's super smart. With like one of the gimmicks he has going on, if you don't follow him, which I imagine you do if you're here, is that like he'll be like, hey, what riff is this? What album? Who did it? What year? Don't cheat, you know? And it's like, it's a 5-minute clip, a 5-second clip, maybe 10, but it's like, it's a great riff. He plays it great. Bam. Then you go to Ben's page and it's like, he's like, hey man, I've been rediscovering myself with jazz. You know what I'm saying? Check out this crazy chord melody I'm working on. Then my hands shouldn't stretch this way, but it's okay. I'm going to do it. And then you go on, and it's like, there's just a big cabbage there and some knives, and I'm shredding the shit out of it because I'm like, that's all I got. Next, you know, like, and it's super cool, man. And you know what else? Funny that you mentioned that. It's like, this is the first time we're like having but it's not the first time we're having a conversation. You know what I mean? There's been many moments where I'm like, I'm having this issue. Anybody have advice? And you're like, dude, check this out, homie. Fucking bam. And I'm like, yeah. You know, like, and then like, there's so many great things. Like, that's the great thing about social media. Like, I remember, I think one of the last conversations I had with like you was like you were at a show and I was like, oh shit, how was it? And you were like, like it's just to catch it in when you make friends, and it's also for people that are watching, it's a really good networking thing. Like you want to know where these people are, and like you want to be friendly with people. Like I respect the hell out of you guys. You're great players. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I want to know what the hell you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like you're killing it. Like you guys were like, oh man, you had a great 2019, and so what? Like 2020, like who cares? Like you guys had a fucking equally amazing one, dude. You graduated college. That shit's hard.
Yeah, you go, Ben.
You know what I mean? That's hard. You're taking more college courses. That is hard. I'm eating. Okay? like, and when I'm not eating, I'm watching TV until I eat again, and then I No, but it's been, but come on, guys. How nice has it been? Like, I haven't been like as active as you guys have been online, but dude, I have been practicing like a boss. Like, dude, like I am nuts right now, bro. I am like painstakingly hitting the shed. Yeah. Like, dude, because I got so, I'm going to say musically rusty playing the same show for like months, 8 days a week, Yeah. Like there was a point where I was just like, I wasn't practicing. I'd be like, dude, I'm out 12 hours a day playing guitar. The last thing you do when you get home is want to like take out the guitar and be like, all right, now let's try melodic minor modes. No, you're like, dude, going to sleep. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, that's something that I was thinking about too, because like with all this sudden, free time that we have now for the foreseeable forever, I don't view playing the guitar as practicing anymore. Like I just feel it. With all this time, I've done more than just shed and just done more than just practice. I've connected with the instrument, on a level that I can't remember like when the last time I actually like connected with it was, because all the times in the past, that I practiced, it was usually for a class or for a gig or a rehearsal and all this stuff. But now I have none of that. Especially now that college is no more for me. Like I just look at the guitar. I'm just like, you and me now. And I'm just like, and it's like,
bring out the whips and the chains, right?
And like, that's kind of a little thing that I'm very grateful for. I'm sure it's the same as for you guys, that I'm just like, not just, I don't see it as practicing anymore. I just see it as just developing an even deeper connection with our chosen instrument.
Yeah. You know what I find? I find that, man, so crazy that we're having this conversation now, because I've been thinking about these things for a couple of days, and it's great. So I find that the older I've gotten and the more mature I've gotten on my musical journey, it's like there's a definite change. I just recently posted a bit, like, who would have guessed? I just recently posted this video where I found a clip of me playing a solo when I was 16. I'm 26 now. And like, I was very John Petrucci. And it's like, I said that, remember? Like, I was like, I wanted to be John Petrucci. I sounded very John Petrucci. And then I went, my tastes have also really changed too. And then like what I'm working on also changes. But I find that the challenge, especially on an instrument like the guitar, and like if we get it more like a school conversation here, it's like when you do the gigs that we do, right? It's a versatile player gig, right? It really, like when you play a musical, you could have a funk tune that goes into a big band swing that goes into a heavy metal tune.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like you don't necessarily have to be amazing at all of it, but you have to be able to fake it like you make it. And I find that finding that balance, even at this part of my life and in my musical journey, it's still difficult. Like if I put a bunch of time into making sure that my technique is where I want it to be, like if I'm working on alternate picking, you know, it's like I'll shed that for a bit and make that like the main focus of my day, and then maybe I'll jam around. But it's like when I don't work on my improv or my my jamming ability, it's like those ideas, they're not as they're more safe when I do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I guess that's what you mean with the connection, but it's like sometimes it's difficult. You know what I'm saying? Have you guys found that? Like,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the big thing I'm falling into is not taking my own advice because I'm used to teaching. And again, I've been teaching now as my primary source of income for like 5 years, is that I can teach, I can construct my lessons, I can give you a foolproof pattern that adapts for every student's needs and everything and their abilities. But ask me what my practice routine is, and I don't fucking have one. All right, I follow my own advice. Now, here's what I do though. I know I said do really funny. So I do kind of like, and again, I am not comparing myself to Pete Thorne, but I kind of do what Pete Thorne does. For those of you who don't know, Pete Thorne is a killer YouTuber, session guitar player, plays for Melissa Etheridge, and he's a big gear demo guy. If a piece of gear comes out, guarantee you Pete Thorne has done a demo on it. He did a video with Tim Pierce, who's also one of my other heroes. That guy, you know Tim Pierce without knowing who he is. If you've listened to anything on the radio between the late 70s through the early 2000s, and even still today, Tim Pierce is probably the guitar player on that record. They did a video breaking down how they learn songs and how they practice. So guys like them who are legitimate masters of the instrument, whether they want to admit it themselves, you know, they're not sitting down going, okay, 10 minutes I'll work on my melodic minor scales, 10 minutes I'm going to work on my chord voicings, 10 minutes I'm going to work on my improv. It's what I do is what they do. It's I have a gig coming up, so I'm going to run those songs from beginning to end, but I'm not playing through them to play through them. I'm playing through them to make sure I hit my pedal changes on time, to make sure my volumes are consistent throughout all my presets and my patches, to make sure I know where my knobs need to be, if I need to roll down some volume here, or if I need to crank the tone knob a little. I need to know which guitar I'm using for each part. I am also making sure I know, okay, when that fill happens, this is what's going on with the rest of the band, or I need to hear that word to know that my harmony is about to come in. It's figuring out all the other logistics, because if I'm going to take the gig, right, I'm going to learn the songs so I can play them. But once you learn the songs, there's all these other things you need to worry about, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. So once I joined Triple Addiction, I would run through our set list literally every single day, and I would keep on just tweaking and dialing in and finding maybe a different vibrato or finding a different improv thing that I wanted to play. So in a sense, I am practicing, but I'm not practicing in the sense of learning the instrument. All right, I know the instrument pretty well. I like to think I'm somewhat of an intermediate player at this point. All right, so I'm not sitting there, though, doing what I do to my students, which is, hey, look at this page in the book. But what I will do is now I'm picking tunes that are places where I want to be or might have been when I was still practicing and playing as much as I was like in high school and in college round one. But since I've been teaching and gigging more, haven't been doing much of. So, you know, I used to be able to pick a tune and work all the way through it and really build up sections that were giving me trouble. And I've kind of become a little bit of a diva where if I can't play through it the first time, I'm kind of like, well, I don't need to play this song anyway, and I'll just kind of move on, which is a terrible attitude for me to have. So I'm starting to bring that back down a little bit because I'm realizing that my hand synchronization isn't quite where it used to be, because a lot of what I'm doing now doesn't require insane 16th note and 32nd note arpeggio runs and sweeps and stuff like that. So my technique hasn't been at that level in a while, but it's okay because in order to make a living doing what I've been doing, that hasn't been what I've needed to do. So for the last month or so, I've been working on Hangar 18 by Megadeth. And just to get that beginning clean and make sure that no notes are cutting out and everything's ringing out, that's a thing in itself. But you can play through the first 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes 45 seconds of that song pretty well. But in that time, you're faced with almost every technique that an advanced guitar player would have. There's hammer-ons, there's pull-offs, there's slides, there's arpeggios, there's sweep picking, there's alternate picking, there's triplet runs, 16th note runs, 32nd note runs, alternate picking, straight down picking. It is a workout of a tune. And if I'm just dedicating 15-20 minutes a day to cleaning that up, it sounds so much better today than it did a month ago when I had to practice it at 50% speed.
Totally.
So,
I also agree with what you're saying with the idea of like the compound work. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like when you weren't practicing the Hangar 18, you were practicing though putting your flair on a tune, you know, especially when you're the person in the band at that point. You know, it's like when you go to art school, they're like, if you take red and put fucking blue with it, you're gonna get purple. And it's like that's kind of the same thing when you're learning an instrument. Here's an A chord, and that's how you play it. You go play one here, here, here. That, you know, they all have their own different sounds. But then it's like when you get to the real world as a professional, people kind of leave it up to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like nobody's ever gonna, like, a piano player can never write a guitar part for you. They could go, here, this is what I'm thinking, you know?
Yeah.
Now guitar it up. You know what I'm saying? You're the guitar player. Do the thing. Like,
first-hand experience with that. Yeah, I play guitar for a band. Joe Lesky, he's a singer-songwriter in the New Jersey metro area. And, you know, he's played, you know, pianos, and we've, you know, played, you know, theaters and clubs and stuff like that. But, right, he is a phenomenal songwriter, and his piano chops are nuts. His sight reading is fantastic. His touch and flair are great. But, right, when he writes a guitar part,
God damn.
you know,
Mr. Popular.
yeah, Mr. I'm super busy right now. But, you know, right, so he'll write parts for everyone, but as soon as he gives it to me, he's like, all right, now make it sound like a guitar part. Now, again, he plays a little, you know, so, like, it's not like he's asking me to play stacked thirds across, which I love. The guitar part where it's like, hey, stacked thirds, right? Piano player. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Nothing's worse than stacked seconds when you see, like, only piano voices have, like, two groups of, like, these fucking feet like this. And they're like, go ahead, sight read it. You're like, dude, I hate you.
Doesn't work that way. But, right, you got to figure out, okay, cool, so this is a clean guitar part. A little bit of chorus would be a nice touch here. Or maybe this is a part that's really sparse. So you want to have your delay and reverb trail off a little bit to fill in that space like Prince would. Or maybe this, you know, when you're doing, you know, modern, you know, praise and worship music, like you got to have a dotted eighth note delay ready to go right away. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not getting the gig.
Oh, it ain't for Jesus if you don't got that dotted eighth delay. You know what I'm saying? It ain't for Jesus. But it's in everything. It's in everything, and that's what people take after having their, you know, experiences and trying behind the scenes. You know, a cook who's been cooking for a while will taste the sauce, be like, oof, needs a little bit more sugar or something to dilute the acidity, you know, in the tomato or something. Or like a painter would be like, I could probably shade that a little bit more and make it look a little bit more realistic. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it's like for sure. So I agree with what you're saying, man.
For sure. You know, Ben, you're doing a great thing with being like, okay, for the next couple, you know, days or weeks or whatnot, I want to re-own it on my jazz chops. So you're probably like, you know, you'll have your tune that you start with, and you're not just playing through them, right? You're also trying to be like, how did I used to do that? But also, what can I take what I've learned since and make it better, right?
Yeah. It's with jazz, it's a very... I discovered like in doing what I've been doing is that you don't have to approach it as this sort of like excuse me. You shouldn't approach it as like this mathematical, super, you know, challenging genre. Even though it is very challenging, like sort of, I've found like approaching it the way as I did, you know, when I was learning rock and like how to just like play riffs and stuff like that. It's like it's all music, and like, you know, if I'm gonna learn, you know, fucking Stairway to Heaven, you know, like learn the solo or learn the riff to that. I'm not gonna be like looking at the sheet music like, you know, all that stuff. No, I'm gonna listen to the record. You know, I'm gonna listen to the record, and that's exactly like that's how I approach learning tunes. It's like I'll have the lead sheet there for like a reference point, but I don't learn the tune from the lead sheet, you know, because if you, with jazz, I found that if someone learns a song like from the lead sheet, it's very, very obvious. Like you can kind of tell, like, oh yeah, he's just like he just learned that off the lead. He's fake booking it.
He's doing it from the real book, yeah.
So,
exactly.
So what do you do, like, in terms of taking a chorus or something? Like, when you're thinking, do you think maybe chord scale that's going to fit over all these things, or do you think chord tones? Do you think arpeggios? Are you thinking ahead?
I mean, that's what, like, you know, I think about that stuff kind of before I play, and like I kind of think, you know, but while I'm playing it, I generally try to think more. I try to think more melodically and maybe in short phrases, like maybe 2, 3, 4 measure phrases.
Yeah.
Because you know, and I try to hear, and I try to take little melodic statements, you know, over like you know, like if it's like any jazz players who are watching this, they know what tune that is, but they you know, so I like little repetitive phrases. Like I try to start with that, and then like slowly like build and build and build up to a point, and like maybe I'll do like sort of like a chord melody type of thing, like a chord solo or something. But it really, you know, that depends on the tune. You know, there's a lot of different types of jazz tunes. You know, there's the burning ones, the really fast swing, medium swing, waltz, ballad, bossa nova, Latin. You know, so it's like not every technique, and like not every, you know, way of taking a jazz solo is appropriate for every, you know, standard and every like tune in the jazz repertoire. But that's you know, that's something that's just something that, you know, after a lot of listening and like, you know, doing all that stuff, listening is really like the thing that I've been doing a lot more of. That's kind of how I like approach learning tunes. Like if I'm like, oh, if I see like a friend of mine on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook playing a tune that I don't know, right. I'm like, oh, I gotta, like, it's a really nice tune. Let me look that up on YouTube or Spotify or anything. And I try to listen to it first, so I can kind of get a lot of different people's takes on it. And that's what, you know, that I feel is more beneficial than just fake booking the tune and just sight reading through it. Because then at that point, the book is kind of dictating to you what to play. And you're kind of just, you know, just taking a shot in the dark, just trying to guess, you know, trying to figure out what sounds good over it, instead of you owning the tune and kind of making it your own.
For sure. I think the hardest part for me, like with the jazz, and the reason I ask is because jazz is probably my weakest style. Maybe like traditional burnin', like now country. That might be a little bit harder. But it's like, when I grew up listening to a bunch of like classic rock. So like, if I had to describe my guitar playing to anybody, I'm more of like an American rock blues guy. And like that touch, like I can emulate it my best, you know what I mean? Like, don't bend, you know what I mean? Like, don't do that, you know, slide more, keep it as jazzy as I could do it. But I feel like that listening key, is very important. And I believe that listening key is very important in your developing of it. Just like at this point, I've already I feel like at this point, if I did nothing but play jazz, I could probably get as comfortable as you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or maybe on a tier where like I would be like B- and you would still be like A. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm a fighting game player, so that's, you know. But like, but I feel like I love that I don't do that. You know what I mean? Because I love hearing like a video you posted the other day, dude, was sick. You know what I mean? And the touch that you had, it was rock. You're a very versatile player, man. When you did over that Maroon 5 tune, whatever it was, that was sick.
The Adam Lambert tune.
The Adam Lambert tune. Sorry, like that was dirty. Like, and you sounded like a rock guy, but it's insane to like. It's like insane to hear how like your influence of listening to so much jazz, and then like if me and you both played the same jazz tune, and then if me and you both played the same hair metal tune, like Don't Stop Believing, the solo, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna be right. We're gonna have the same notes. We're gonna do the run the same way. We're gonna play the exact right, but just our individual flair and the players that we listen to that have like ingrained into us. It's like a little accent, you know what I mean? And I love that. I love that. You know, I heard a quote. I want to throw this at your way. I'm taking over your interview, damn it, or your podcast, and it's now the JJB. No, all right. Let me throw a question at you guys. I heard a quote a couple of years ago from Steve Vai, who's one of my favorite guitar players, and he was saying something along the lines of, a lot of people say to work on your weaknesses, but he believes you should work on your strengths, so you're not touchable on your strengths. You know, what do you think about that?
So I quoted that exact same Guitar Center interview for my senior quote, but I took the phrase, the only thing holding you back is the way you're thinking. And I watch that video once a year just to remind myself that it's going to be okay. Papa Steve said everything's going to be okay. Just listen to Steve fucking Vai like you're supposed to.
Daddy. He's the man, dude.
So I feel that you need to learn enough about the instrument to make your own decisions at first. You know, everything's going to be hard at first, whether it's a new job, a new instrument, or if you're becoming a parent for the first time. Everything's going to suck right away. And you're going to have no idea what you're going to be doing. Everything's on fire, and you're not getting any sleep, and you're trying to figure out if this is even right for you. But once you get a handle on it, I definitely agree to play to your strengths, which is why I focus on knowing not just how to learn tunes, but how to learn tunes quickly, how to learn them effectively, and how to be able to play to the band I'm in. So if it's a cover band that I'm filling in for, I got to figure out what the other guy is doing and be able to do what he does because it's not my band. But for bands that I'm joining, I got to know when to not overshadow other people, but when it's my time to shine, people know that this is me playing. So I definitely agree on, at this point, you know, I can't sight read two-hand piano for shit. I'm not going to sit here and spend 3 hours a day doing that. But when I see someone else do it, I'm like, wow, I really can't play the piano worth of shit. But that same person will go to pick up a guitar and be at the same level I'm at on piano, whereas I can pick up the guitar, and if they're on piano and I'm on guitar, now we're making some music. So I definitely agree on that, where there are things that I want to be better at, so I'll work on them, but it's all guitar related. That's what I do. If I'm weak in a certain area, maybe I'll skip over it, maybe I'll spend some time on it if I need to for a gig. But you're right, you made a good point about theater before, where I'll take the show Altar Boys, for example. It's love that show. It's great. For those of you guys who don't know, Altar Boys is a comedy musical about a fictitious Christian boy band. So basically, if you want to go see a Christian Backstreet Boys musical, that is what it's for. And it's the best thing is how the MD told me about the gig. He's like, hey man, do you want to be the backing band for the Backstreet Boys, but it's not the Backstreet Boys? And I'm like, yeah, that's not a question. It's you tell me where I have to be and where, and I'll be there. So in that show, you are playing everything from Santana licks to Jimmy Page licks to straight up Doobie Brothers stuff, and then you're doing 90s boy band tunes, you're doing acoustic ballads, you're doing full-on metal riffs, and then you're doing huge orchestral parts where you're playing little melodies. And you got to know just enough about the guitar and the people who made the guitar what it is to really be able to milk that part so that the audience feels like they're in a show that's been rehearsed for years, even though you've only been working on the music for a month or less.
Did you go to Berkeley in person or just online?
So I did 2 years at Raritan Valley College, and I got my Associate of Fine Arts there, and then I started doing my degree on Berkeley online. So I've only been doing the online classes there.
Nice, man. What's your major?
Bachelor's of Music Business.
Nice. I was going to say, it's funny that you say that because I was a Berkeley performance major. I have a degree in guitar performance. And one of the requirements, I don't know if Rutgers does this, Ben, but you were a performance major, right?
Yeah, I was jazz performance.
Nice. There was no like at Berkeley. It wasn't like there are no guys going out of it like prog performance or jazz performance. It's just like guitar performance. And one of the courses we had to take was history of the guitar. Like you had to take it, and it's like I feel like that course at that school is very underrated because it's a really great way to introduce the founding fathers. You know what I mean? Like the people that set the bar in motion that everybody else is now running with to here. They're iconic legends for a reason, you know? And it's like, you know, you said that like Santana, Jimmy Page, those are guys, you know what I mean? Wes Montgomery, like Charlie Christian, Django Reinhardt, like these are all people that like were in the class that we learned about. Like, I think that class was really helpful for somebody like me or like us who's in a position where you have to play. And like for people that don't know, sometimes in these musical books, like in the music, you get there are things called like orchestrator notes. So sometimes you'll get like a bar of slashes and it's like lick a la Jimmy Page.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
You know what I mean? Like, so you'll get something like that. And if you're a strict, straight up, like blues is the devil, I only believe in jazzer, you'd be like, like, that's not it though. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you have like, I don't know. I think that's a great point, man, to be able to listen to all those other people and to know.
Yeah, and if not, you best be willing to do your research. There's a part in Little Shop of Horrors, I believe. I might have the wrong show. It might be Mamma Mia. But anyway, they want you to do a Shaft funk part. And at first I was like, I have no idea what this is. So I listened to the recording and I heard the of the wah pedal, and I'm like, it's the dude who originated like that style of wah playing. So you have to be able to know how to do that, and that's the other thing.
It's much better when they mark that like 70s porn wah, you know, like
and I've seen that before, and that is the best.
You're doing a show like for like Sister Act, and it's like big mustache 70s porn star walks into the room. That's not the no people, but that's it. Come on. I once did a show at Berkeley. My friend wrote a progressive rock opera, and he wrote this tune in the key of A flat minor. Okay, not hard enough that the song was in 23/16, which go fuck yourself. Kevin Kopsko, I love you. You're a musical genius, but I have to tell the story because I always tell the story. It was a show called Tin Kiston, and he wrote this part, and I was reading it, but he wrote in A flat minor. And for those who are not a fan of music theory, that means 7 flats, right? 7 flats, A flat minor. So I just asked him, I was like, hey man, do you think it would be possible to like get us another part tomorrow in G sharp minor? It's only 5 sharps. You know what I'm saying? A lot easier than I think that. And you would see that more frequently. How often you read in C flat major? 0 times. Okay, thank you. So
Rent the music hall.
So he came back at me the next day with the thing, and he gave me a new part. and the part had the same key signature. And I looked up to the orchestrator and he said, "Play without bitching about the key signature." And I was like, ah! I was like, touche, sir. Touche.
Love it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that happens. We've got one more quick little segment we want to do, and then we'll kind of, wrap things up here.
For sure.
So it's kind of like a two-parter, and again, we'll go around for the first question, go around for the second one. The big one that I want to talk about today is influence, and what I mean by influence is how certain people or certain musicians have inspired you, and how you take what they mean to you and apply it to yourself. So I'll go first. Again, you and I are kind of on the same page. So for me, my Jesus Christ is John Petrucci. Okay, that's again, a lot of people feel that way, but there's a reason why I've had a minimum of 10 Music Man guitars. I have 3 pictures. I've got magazines, signed back plates. I've met him in person. I cried when I met him. True story. All right. The reason why I consider John Petrucci, guitarist of Dream Theater, to be my biggest influence is simply because of the fact that he made me look at the guitar as a voice. And also, he inspired me to want to get to where I am today with it. It's one thing to pick up a instrument or a video game or a skill or a trade and just do it, a little bit during the week because it's something that you enjoy. It relieves stress from work, whatever. But for me, that's not what the guitar is. The guitar to me is this physical object that I pick up every single day, and I just immediately feel like I'm at home. I'm happy when I'm playing it. I'm never miserable when I'm playing it. It gets me gigs. It allows me to make friends. It allows me to make money. And it is the greatest thing that I've chosen to do in my life. And the role that Petrucci has played is getting my chops up, getting my ass in shape, being able to play things at some sort of level above beginner, but also as a songwriter in terms of, okay, I am one part of the band, so how does my part fit into what everyone else is doing? He is known for inhuman shredding, but he is also known for some of the most melodic guitar solos I've ever heard in my life. And he'll be able to flip-flop, just like a toggle switch, back and forth between those in the same song.
I like what you did there.
Thank you very much. So that's what Petrucci means to me. So he's an influence because while I don't think I sound like Petrucci, it's the way that his music has impacted me that's gotten me to where I am today, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else than holding a guitar that he signed for me in person. So
nice.
That's where I am in terms of influence. John, how does influence play a part in you, in your life, in your musical career?
Well, that's a good question. Well, John Petrucci clearly was one of my guys, but I think 9 times out of 10, the people that should get the credit to having you want to play guitar are your teachers. Because me listening to Dream Theater and me listening to Steve Vai when my mother introduced them to me, or me listening to Alice Cooper from my dad, and me listening to the guitar part is one thing, but to sit down in front of somebody in the same room and go, holy crap, you could do that? You know what I mean? Like that was such a, I listened to Alice Cooper on like tape. That's how long ago that, you know what I mean? Like, so like my teachers, like my first guitar teacher ever, Andy Graziano, like without him making it so much fun. And like, obviously it comes down to me also liking it too, without him, without Adam Hecht, without Robbie Padovano, without, and then when I got older, those teachers very much helped and were influenced. But then at that point, it's like, I had those people help me to play like the idols that I love, like Petrucci, obviously. I mean, dude, Images and Words, probably one of my favorite albums. My mother brought that home. My mother and my father went to go see them live in 2000. Brought home like a DVD, and I was bought. Then she showed me Crossroads. You ever see that movie with Steve Vai?
Yeah.
Dude, she was like, "Don't watch this movie. Skip to the last scene." If you remember doing that when you were younger, like going on the DVD and can go into chapters. Guitar battle, dude, for your soul. Man. I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like,
the best.
But so I mean, like John Petrucci, Steve Vai, man, you know, so many guitar players I didn't even know the names of because it wasn't like they were set out guitar players, like just great guitar players in bands. You know what I mean? Like CC DeVille was great in Poison, but it's like I don't really know the name of the guy who played guitar in Alice Cooper. You know what I mean? I know Steve Vai and Joe Satriani did like guest solos, but like he definitely influenced me. Whoop! I dropped myself.
Yeah,
I'm back now.
Cooper's got a revolving door of just some of the best session players ever. And that's the thing, not to cut you off, but real quick, it's one of those things in the industry where if you are asked to play for Alice Cooper, that's when you know you have made it.
Yeah,
and
I turned him down. I turned him down last week. You know, no.
He's one of the nicest dudes, and you know, I'm a big fan of Nita Strauss, one of his current guitar players. I mean,
dude.
She is just on a whole other level. But you know, she was like, you know, when she was doing her whole solo thing, you know, she had to take some time off from Alice Cooper, and he was like, totally cool, man. Just come back when you're done. You know, spot's still yours. And for someone who has been consistently putting out material for almost 5 decades, Alice Cooper just doesn't quit. Now, I took my girlfriend to see him last summer. It was Motionless in White, Hailstorm, and Alice Cooper. So it was a killer friggin' lineup. I love all 3 of those bands. Alice Cooper comes out, and he still has the whole stage as like a horror theme park, and he still has his knives and his canes and his hats. All the music's tuned down. He can't quite hit the highest notes, but goddamn, he puts every ounce of soul into making it a show. And that's what I love about Alice Cooper. And this ties into what you said, where you don't always know the names of the guitar players, but you know that they are filling that role. So for you to play for someone like Alice Cooper, where his band changes throughout time, you just know that if you are in that spot, you are a damned good musician. And I think that's also important to notice, because we could talk about like the band Megadeth and be like, oh, what's your favorite Megadeth song? And we could be like, oh, they didn't have the same guitar player for more than like 2 or 3 records at a time. You know, They all knew what to do in Megadeth, you know? So I think that's one of those things where when you're in a band that has a constantly changing lineup, if you can make it stand out or make it fit the part, I think that's just as equally impressive as if you have a solo project where it's just you. If you can fill in and be in a band situation, that has its own set of challenges and rewards from just doing your own thing. That said, people like Angel Vivaldi, who their solo projects are insane, it's because they also write good music and they know how to be melodic about it, and they ask other people for help. Like, I love that guy. You know, he brought on a different guest for almost every song on his last album, Synapse, and each player fit the track perfectly, and that's a skill in itself. So going back to the whole musical theater thing, when you're doing that jazz ballad in a rock show, if you know the right things to play and the right way to play them, that will impress me more than just hearing you do that one thing you do really well but for 2 hours straight. So, Ben, what's your take on that?
What's my take on, like, what's the general message?
Influence. We're still on influence, and how whatever influences you and how you feel it affects you as a player.
I mean, there's a lot of for me. I mean, there's not like one grand one like kind of person that I bow down to for everything. Like who's in. Like, there's not one person that I can point to and be like, he has influenced me in every single aspect that I do. Every musical aspect, I guess. There's a lot of different, from the jazz realm, from the rock realm. I guess as a whole, for me, like the one person I would give it up to for like completely like changing the way that I view the guitar and that I view music, that person would be Joe Satriani,
Hell
for
yeah.
me, because like, he was the first. I mean, we mentioned Steve Vai. I mean, Joe Satriani taught Steve Vai. He taught Steve Vai. He taught Kirk Hammett from Metallica, Alex Skolnick. I think Paul Gilbert too. But like guys like so when I that's like the first name that comes up to me, like just for my guitar playing as a whole, because early on I had the classic rock influence with Jimmy Page, Ritchie Blackmore, Keith Richards, all those guys, Eddie Van Halen. But when I heard Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani for the first time, or when I heard Surfing with the Alien, that was like, I had never heard, it wasn't even conceivable that kind of sound could come out of a guitar.
Who would have ever thought of raising the fourth scale degree like that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And like, no, but when I heard, if I heard him, I heard things that were different. But when I was listening to it, I wasn't thinking intervals. I wasn't being like, oh, he's just playing scales. Like, no, I heard something totally alien to me at the time, something totally just that it was just like, that made me, that in that moment I was just like, whatever he's doing, I want to do that. And so like, because he had like his own kind of recognizable thing, his own little thing that he would, that he had, and like, and he took that and he ran with it. And it was like, and it's, so like just like that kind of like got the wheels turning in my mind. And of course, like there's other aspects, you're not just going to be in every situation. You're not just going to be a blazing gospel chops lead player, so like I had other influences for the more less, like, I don't want to say lesser roles, but like not just the lead playing kind of stuff. I have a lot of influences, like in terms of rhythm playing and like kind of staying back and not being the center of attention. In that regard, I'd say John Frusciante from Red Hot Chili Peppers is like a huge one for me, because he was like, whereas like guys like Satch and Steve Vai are like, they want to be like this. They want to be like, on top of the stage and just like doing all this stuff. John Frusciante was the polar opposite. And he's just like, he was totally content just playing like a couple notes at a time. And it worked. It still works to this day. And the Chili Peppers have been around for God knows how long. And so, and also what getting back to what John was saying earlier about your teachers being a huge influence, that is, I relate to that tenfold, because all the teachers that I've had, my first teacher was this guy named Steve Minkowitz, who I studied with for 8 years, like from the day that I first started playing guitar in 2007 up until 2015 when I went away to college for the first time. He really just, he was so like encouraging and so always willing to kind of help me with whatever the heck I wanted to do, musically or otherwise. And then when I got to college, Zach, I've mentioned these names before, but the main teachers that I've had over the last several years, Vic Juris, God rest his soul, and Dave Stryker. Just when I sat down with Vic for my very first lesson with Vic, and I saw. I mean, if any of you guys watching, if you don't know who Vic Juris is, you have to look him up. Is absolutely incredible, and he is like deserves way more recognition than he deserves. Because when you think jazz guitar, you probably think Pat Metheny, Pat Martino, John Schofield, Wes Montgomery, or Jim Hall. Very few people, except for guitar players, really know who Vic Juris is. But when I sat down with him and he just like started playing a tune, I was just like this, like I got to keep up with this guy, like this, like how the fuck am I gonna do this? And so, like, you know, with him, it was just like he's another guy who I was just like, he has his own sound, and like it was just like that, you know. I can only like dream of getting to the point of having a sound like that instantly identifiable.
Well, I wanted to say two things real quick on your point. Is that first off, when it comes to the teacher thing, that guy, what was his name? Zach? Was that your first teacher? Zach something with an M?
Steve.
Steve Minkowitz. He did what he did for you. You're gonna do, because that's just how the cycle goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure you have a student now that you would give all your patience, all your time, and all your support to. So that's a beautiful thing, because I know I do that with my guys too, especially because like you got to pay it back, and that's the danger about the influence being so strong. And I think that's why I kind of like cold turkeyed Dream Theater so much, like Zach, like just like for like. I used to also have a lot of Music Man guitars, and like when I was in Berkeley, they used to go, "Oh, John Petrucci," like that's what they used to call me. Right. And I was like, "Yeah, it's funny." You know, at first you're like, "Yeah, like I want to be John Petrucci," and then like 4 years you're still there, and they're like, "John Barry, John Petrucci." You're like, "Well, I do."
I'm not John Petrucci. I'm John Barry.
Yeah, that gig's taken, man.
You gotta be yourself.
So that's what I've been working on a lot, and I think that's the like we said, like to bring it full circle again too, like that's the gig. You know what I'm saying? Like you take all these things that you've seen, like if you're an artist, a painter, like you're like, okay, I've seen a mountain, right? I know what it looks like, but how, with the skills I have, am I going to get it out? If you follow the Bob Ross method, it's going to look like a Bob Ross painting. Yeah. So even if you sign your name to it, if I go John J. Barry, they're going to go, you watch the Bob Ross instructional DVD. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Yeah. So it's like, it's all like, okay, well, I know this technique from that guy, I know this technique from that guy, I learned this from that solo, I learned that from that rhythm track, I learned that from that tone. You know what I mean? And that's why I think the putting glue together is.
Yeah, I definitely agree. My first guitar teacher who I had I think I had him for about 8 years or so, Doug Fruller. He definitely made the lessons, the way they were. Like, I came back every week, because he just had more stuff to give me. I stuck with him for 8 years. So he definitely helped get my feet wet in the different aspects of music, intro to theory, reading notes all over the guitar. His big thing was reading. And because that was my first instrument, I was like, okay, that's just what you do. So he got my reading chops up immensely, my jazz theory and all that kind of stuff. And then in high school, my music teacher and my current co-band member, and Remember Yesterday, Vincent Young, introduced me to different styles of music. He got me into Alter Bridge and Mark Tremonti. So right away, I started learning, like, yo, I want to riff like Mark Tremonti. That dude knew what to do. So I got a Mark Tremonti signature guitar because I didn't have any fixed bridge guitars at the time. So I'm like, yeah, I can go to like open G tuning and like my whammy bar doesn't go all weird, And then he also got me into Pat Metheny, and Yo-Yo Ma. And at that time...
No, Yo Ma. No, I'm only kidding. Sorry.
I was discovering music on my own, too. So that's around the time that modern progressive metal, like Periphery, Tesseract, and Amyls' Leader started to become really popular. So now I had all these different styles of music coming together, and I wanted to learn how to do all of it. And eventually it got to the point where... doing bands myself and writing my own music, I think my music sounds like Zach Seif, because it's not a carbon copy. And I think a problem that a lot of people have today is that they get too into one thing, but they don't like the criticism, like, oh dude, it sounds just like this, but that's because that's the only thing that they know. Now, with that being said, there's always going to be a Derek Trucks, there's always going to be a Joe Bonamassa, there's always going to be the guy who does one thing perfect, and you listen to them and you're like, okay, they've spent their whole life being a blues player, they spent their whole life being a jazz musician. He spent his whole life really doing that slide guitar thing, and he's like the second coming of Dwayne Allman. But there's also going to be us, who we do a little bit of everything, but we do it our way. And that's why we get the gigs we get, because I'm Zach Seif, you're Ben Weise, you're John Barry, and that is, I think, the most important thing to kind of take away from that.
I get the gig because I tell one hell of a good fucking joke, okay? That's really the reason. Don't get that twisted, man.
John, you're a phenomenal one.
I appreciate it, brother.
So, yeah, John, thank you so much for coming on today, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Do you have anything that you want to, tell people?
Man, first off, thank you for having me. Congratulations, both of you, on like everything you've been doing. It's incredible. Like, dude, you guys are killer fucking players, man. I wish I had that memo when I was 23, 22. Jesus Christ. Like, I'm 26 and I'm still sucking. So one day I'll get good. But to everybody watching, man, thank you so much for having me join these guys. If you wouldn't mind, please go check me out on social media. I am John J. Barry on YouTube. Please give me a subscribe. It would mean a lot, especially in the times that we are living in now. Any like and any number is really benefit to any musician, including Zach and Ben and anybody else you know. Go give people likes and go subscribe to them. It's a click. It's 5 seconds. It makes a huge difference. And guys, thank you for having me. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, keep practicing, keep posting. Fucking awesome. I love you both. And I hope we get to do this again sometime, man. And I hope we get to play together, more importantly, when this is all over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hands down. Thank you so much, John. Take care, man.
Much love. Catch you later.
Peace out.